Millionaire shocked when he sees his childhood first love selling flowers, and does the unthinkable. Morning sunlight streamed through the windshield as Nathan Calloway returned to the seaside town where he grew up. For the first time in nearly 30 years. He had left behind San Francisco's billion-dollar deals, boardroom battles, and a penthouse with sweeping views of the bay. Now, all he wanted was something real. His car rolled to a stop at a red light at a familiar intersection. He turned his head absent-mindedly, and his heart caught in his chest. The corner hadn't changed a bit, still peaceful, still warm, with the same faded sign that read, Rivera's Flowers, Esther 1995. And standing out front, surrounded by baskets of vibrant blooms, was the one woman he had never been able to forget, Emily Rivera. She was leaning over a bouquet of tulips, arranging each stem with the same gentle care she used to give everything she touched. The breeze lifted strands of her graying hair, but the soft smile on her face was the same one that had stolen his breath when they were 17. Nathan's fingers tightened around the steering wheel. Somewhere in his mind, an old voice whispered, "Don't let the past cloud the future." But right now, the past was the only thing he wanted to return to. "Clear my morning schedule," he said quickly into his phone, already opening the door. His eyes never left Emily. To everyone else, he was just another man standing on the opposite sidewalk. But to Nathan, that corner wasn't just a piece of pavement. It was the beginning. And maybe, if fate was kind, it could be the beginning again. Nathan stood quietly across the street, unable to tear his eyes away from the scene in front of him. Rows of colorful flower baskets lined the sidewalk, and the familiar scent, night-blooming jasmine, lavender, and a faint hint of gardenia, pulled him back to a simpler, more honest time. He remembered those summer nights under the trellis behind the flower shop, where Emily would lay out a checkered blanket and they'd lie beneath the stars. They talked about the future like it was something they could hold, childish dreams spoken with absolute belief. She wanted to open her own flower shop. He wanted to build something big, but still small enough to feel like home. They were 17, too young to know better, old enough to fall in love. And then everything changed. Nathan's family, especially his mother, never approved of their relationship. "That girl doesn't belong in your world," she had said flatly. Emily was the daughter of a local gardener. Nathan was the heir to the Calloway Group. When the scholarship came, offering him a chance to leave the town behind, Nathan took it. The promise to return faded beneath deadlines, dorm rooms, and a life moving too fast. Emily had written to him, at first every week, then once a month, and then nothing. He never responded to the last letter, the one that held a pressed jasmine petal and a handwritten note. "I'll keep this corner, whether you come back or not." 28 years had passed, but every word of that letter still echoed in his chest. And now, standing in front of the very same flower shop, wrapped in scent and memory, Nathan realized he had never truly left. Nathan pushed open the wooden door of Rivera's Flowers, the soft chime above ringing like a greeting from the past. He stepped into the small shop, filled with the scent of blossoms and sunlight, filtering through frosted windows, casting a golden glow over the carefully arranged blooms. Emily was bending over, adjusting a bouquet of white carnations. She looked up at the sound of the bell, and for a moment, time seemed to stop. Their eyes met. No words, no quick smile, just recognition, deep, sudden, and undeniable. "Hello," Emily said first, her voice gentle, but guarded. Nathan nodded, his heart thudding like it did the first time he saw those eyes at 17. He stepped closer to the counter, glanced around, and pointed at a neatly wrapped bundle of pale lavender tied with a white ribbon. "I'll take this one," he said. Emily hesitated for just a beat. Lavender. The flower she had given him on the day he left, pressed inside that final letter. "You still like lavender?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "Actually, I don't think I ever stopped," Nathan replied, reaching for the bouquet. Their fingers brushed, barely a touch, but it felt like a spark from something long buried. It lasted only a second, but in that second, a past full of unspoken words passed between them. Emily wrapped the bouquet quickly, clearly avoiding his gaze, but Nathan didn't push. He wasn't here for answers. Not yet. Just to be here, in this scent, this light, in the place that once felt like home. "The shop looks just as beautiful as it used to," he said, his eyes drifting across the framed photos on the wall. Young Emily, smiling customers, weddings she had once flowered. "Well, the florist has a few more wrinkles now," she smiled, light but unashamed. Nathan smiled back, warmth blooming somewhere deep inside him. "Not everyone manages to keep a corner like this for nearly 30 years, he said softly. Emily looked at him, this time longer. "Not everyone comes back." And in those simple words lay all the things they hadn't dared to say. After that first visit, Nathan didn't rush. He returned to the flower shop 2 days later, then again that weekend. The excuses were simple. "I need flowers for my desk," or "thought these dahlias might brighten up my mother's kitchen." Emily didn't ask questions. She quietly wrapped the flowers, gave him his change, and returned to her work. But with each visit, the space between them seemed to grow a little smaller. One day, Nathan brought her a cup of coffee. "I remember you used to like cappuccino," he said. "Wasn't sure if that's still true." Emily hesitated before accepting it. "Still do," she replied without meeting his eyes. "Just don't have time to enjoy it much anymore." They didn't talk about the past. No one mentioned the last letter. No one asked why Nathan had disappeared without a word. But in every glance, every brief brush of fingers over a bouquet, something long buried began to crack open. Old wounds hadn't healed completely. They both knew it. And maybe that's why neither dared to move too quickly. Instead, they kept a rhythm, like a slow waltz, one step back, half a step forward, waiting for each other, even if neither was quite ready to say it out loud. That afternoon, the flower shop was quiet. Rain tapped lightly against the windows. Nathan arrived later than usual, carrying a box of pastries and 2 cups of herbal tea. Emily looked up from the register when he walked in, surprised, but not displeased. "I thought you might need something warm," Nathan said, setting everything on the counter. She stared at him for a moment, then gently poured the tea into 2 ceramic cups. They sat at the small table near the window, where 2 rose pots used to bloom. Now only bare soil remained. "Hard season for roses," Emily said, like it was just a passing thought. "And yet, you've kept this shop going for nearly 30 years. Nathan smiled. "You've always been the most determined person I've known." Emily didn't respond right away. She stirred her tea slowly, her eyes far away. "Thomas passed away 5 years ago," she said softly. "Heart attack? Sudden? He walked out one morning and never came back." Nathan's grip tightened around his cup, silent. Everything fell apart. He left behind a lot of debt. I didn't know until Joey Malden showed up with contracts and a red seal I couldn't ignore. "Malden?" Nathan asked, his voice shifting. "His lender. Not exactly a kind man, but I had signed some of the paperwork with Thomas, so the debt became mine." Emily gave a tired smile. "This shop almost disappeared. I nearly sold it, more than once. But Lena, she wouldn't let me." After Emily finished speaking, a heavy silence settled over the room. Each word she had spoken felt like a cut across Nathan's memory. Not because she blamed him, but because the truth was undeniable. He hadn't been there when she needed someone most. He stared down at his hands, fingers wrapped tightly around a now cold teacup. Images filled his mind. Emily holding a newborn, facing a creditor alone, silently arranging flowers with tired eyes. And him. Where had he been during those years? Signing deals in Singapore, giving keynote speeches in Zurich, toasting with champagne in boardrooms wrapped in glass and steel. While Emily wrestled with debt, with grief, with a child and a crumbling little shop. "You were too strong," he murmured, mostly to himself. Emily gave a soft smile. "Had to be? Someone had to take care of our girl." Nathan nodded, throat tight. He couldn't turn back the clock, but this time he wouldn't miss another moment. In his eyes now, Emily wasn't just the girl he once loved. She was the woman who had survived the storm alone. And he, finally, just wanted to be there when the skies cleared. After Emily finished speaking, a heavy silence settled over the room. Each word she had spoken felt like a cut across Nathan's memory. Not because she blamed him, but because the truth was undeniable. He hadn't been there when she needed someone most. He stared down at his hands, fingers wrapped tightly around a now-cold teacup. Images filled his mind. Emily holding a newborn, facing a creditor alone, silently arranging flowers with tired eyes. And him. Where had he been during those years? Signing deals in Singapore, giving keynote speeches in Zurich, toasting with champagne in boardrooms wrapped in glass and steel. While Emily wrestled with debt, with grief, with a child and a crumbling little shop. "You were too strong," he murmured, mostly to himself. Emily gave a soft smile. "Had to be. Someone had to take care of our girl." Nathan nodded, throat tight. He couldn't turn back the clock, but this time he wouldn't miss another moment. In his eyes now, Emily wasn't just the girl he once loved. She was the woman who had survived the storm alone, and he, finally, just wanted to be there when the skies cleared. Nathan knew the day would come when Eleanor found out. In her world, nothing he did went unnoticed. He just hadn't expected it so soon. The call came while he was driving back from the flower shop, golden light spilling across the windshield. "What exactly are you doing in that little town, Nathan?" Her voice was cold and direct, no preamble. Nathan tightened his grip on the steering wheel. "I just needed some space, a break from everything." "A break? Or are you running back to something you should have left behind?" She wasn't talking about the town. She was talking about Emily. "I just wanted to talk to her," he said quietly. "That's all." "Have you forgotten?" Eleanor snapped. "How hard we worked to pull you out of that place, out of that relationship. Don't let sentimentality drag you backward." Nathan closed his eyes briefly. After nearly 3 decades, she still spoke in the same clipped, cold tone that had once made him believe loving Emily was a mistake. "I'm not 17 anymore, Mother," he said softly. Silence, then a dry, humorless chuckle. "Then prove it. Don't let emotion destroy everything you've built." The call ended with a long beep, but its echo lingered in Nathan's chest, like a stone dropped into still water. Eleanor Calloway never forgot, and now she knew. The next morning, as Emily opened the shop, she had no idea the winds of the past were stirring again. But something in the air made her uneasy, a subtle shift, like a storm forming just out of sight. By late afternoon, when a sleek car pulled up and a tall, poised woman stepped out with a chill in her posture, Emily realized the past wasn't just knocking, it was demanding an answer. One weekday afternoon, Emily was arranging hydrangeas when the shop door swung open. The wind chime rang gently, and in walked Eleanor Calloway, Nathan's mother. Though older now, she still carried the same cold elegance, ash-gray cashmere coat, polished leather heels, and a crocodile handbag. The room felt a few degrees colder. "Hello, Emily," Eleanor said, her smile thin as a blade. "May I speak with you privately?" Emily hesitated, then nodded and gestured to the table near the counter. No need for pleasantries, Eleanor began, taking a seat. I'm here for my son's future, and believe it or not, for your benefit too. Emily raised an eyebrow. My benefit? You've had a charming little corner shop, but clearly it won't last forever. So why not step away with dignity? I'm willing to buy it for a very generous price. Emily set her shears down. And in return? You stay out of Nathan's life. Don't drag him backward. Emily exhaled slowly, eyes steady. I'm not dragging anyone. I'm living my life. You don't understand, Eleanor snapped. Nathan is on the verge of a major merger worth hundreds of millions. Relationships like yours will only weigh him down. Emily didn't respond. Instead, she walked to the register, opened a drawer, and pulled out an envelope. Inside were her shop's lease, design sketches she'd made with Lena, and photos from the early years. This is my life. It's not for sale. Eleanor rose, her expression darkening. You'll regret this. Maybe, Emily said evenly. But at least I won't trade myself for a place someone else drew on a map. Meanwhile, in a glass-walled office in San Francisco, Vivian Sharp, Nathan's former partner and ex-lover, closed the door behind her. I know you've been back in that little town, she said, her tone sharp. And I know about the florist. Nathan folded his arms, leaning against the desk. You've been following me? Vivian scoffed. No need. Rumors spread fast, and the board, they're already getting nervous. Nervous about what? That you're letting personal distractions cloud your judgment. The Sharpstone merger needs a clear-headed CEO, not someone reliving a teenage fantasy. So what do you want? Make a choice, Nathan. Love or legacy? You don't get both. Nathan looked out at the city skyline, the setting sun casting gold across the glass towers. Inside him, the answer was already clear. Nathan watched the city dissolve into the sunset after Vivian's final ultimatum. But neither her threat nor his mother's cold demands shook him as much as the one look he feared most, the look of disappointment in Emily's eyes. A look he was about to see again, in a way he didn't expect. A week after facing Eleanor and Vivian, Nathan arrived at a small cafe downtown. Joey Malden had agreed to meet him there. Joey walked in wearing a weathered leather jacket, the kind of man who had once known what it was to hold power. He gave a thin smile and sat without a word. You're here about Emily, right? Nathan nodded. I heard you lent money to her husband. Joey shrugged. Lent? More like gambled. Thomas was a drunk and a debt magnet. Died still owing every last cent. He pulled out a stack of papers from his coat and dropped them on the table. Here's the kicker. Emily co-signed the loan. Beautiful signature, right? Sweet little florist backing her mess of a husband. Nathan stared at the signature, his hands trembling. She never told you, huh? Joey asked, eyes gleaming. Nathan said nothing, shocked but not surprised. That was Emily, strong, proud, to the point of heartbreak. Joey chuckled. I'm about to sell this debt to a collection agency. But if you want to clean the slate, I think we can deal. Nathan knew this was a chance to take the burden off Emily's shoulders. But if she found out, would she see it as help or as proof he thought she couldn't survive without him? 2 days later, Emily learned the truth from a banker she'd known for years, who casually mentioned that the debt was cleared 3 days ago by an anonymous third party, paid in full. She froze. When Nathan showed up at the shop, she was already waiting, holding the envelope. It was you, wasn't it? Nathan exhaled. I just wanted to help. Emily wasn't angry, but in her eyes was something worse than rage, quiet disappointment. You think I'm so weak I can't handle it myself? No, I couldn't stand knowing you'd carried it alone all this time. She placed the envelope on the counter. Helping me isn't wrong, Nathan. but hiding it is. He stood silent. There was nothing to say, because she was right. "I've spent years learning how to stand on my own," she said quietly. "This time, I don't want anyone walking into my life out of pity." Nathan nodded slowly, eyes locked on her back as she turned away. He didn't blame her. He only wondered, maybe love isn't always about fixing things. Maybe it's knowing when to step back, so the person you love can stand tall on their own. That night, Nathan sat alone on a bench in a quiet park near his hotel. The early autumn wind was colder than usual, and his mind was spinning with questions Emily hadn't asked, but he was already trying to answer them himself. "You'll be angry, you'll be disappointed. But if I had to choose again, I'd still do it." He knew Emily was the kind of woman who would choose the hard way, as long as it meant standing on her own. That was her strength and her vulnerability. She didn't need a savior. She needed someone who could walk beside her, not in front, not behind. But when he saw the loan document, her signature between numbers she never should have carried alone, his heart twisted. He couldn't stay still. Maybe he was wrong not to tell her first. Maybe he crossed a line she had drawn for herself. But in that moment, this was the only way he knew how to love her, through action, through silence, and through the belief that sometimes love means doing the right thing, even if the one you love might resent you for it. He wasn't looking for thanks. He didn't expect her to come back overnight. But if lifting that weight off her shoulders was the first step, he was willing to wait for the next, however long it might take. Love isn't pity. He knew that better than anyone. But sometimes, love is simply refusing to let the person you care about fall one more time. Nathan entered the boardroom that morning with a quiet calm, not the confident stride of a rising CEO once called the golden brain of Callaway Group, but of a man who had just come through a quiet, irreversible awakening. In front of him sat a long table of faces he used to believe mattered most: board members, legal counsel, representatives from Sharpstone, and at the far end, Eleanor Callaway, his mother, unreadable as ever. Beside her was Vivian Sharp, clad in a tailored gray suit, her gaze sharp and expectant. "We can begin," Vivian said briskly. But Nathan didn't sit. "Before we begin, there's something I need to say," he spoke, calm but unwavering. Eyes turned toward him. "I'm stepping down from Callaway Group, and I'm withdrawing from the merger. Because somewhere along the way, I lost the man I used to be, and I'm ready to find him again." Silence. A pin could drop. "Do you understand what you're saying?" Eleanor asked quietly, her words soft but steel-lined. "Perfectly," Nathan replied. "I've thought about this deeply. It's the right decision, for me, and for the life I choose to live honestly." Vivian rose. "Because of her? Emily?" Her voice held disbelief and a hint of pain. "It's not because of her," Nathan answered. "It's because of me. Because I don't want to lose what little humanity I still recognize in myself, just to lead a soulless empire." Eleanor's jaw tightened. "Do you know how much this company has sacrificed for your future?" "I do. But I'm done trading the things that matter most: freedom, feeling, love, for something that can't give them back." No one replied. Because in that moment, Nathan was no longer the obedient Callaway heir or a reluctant executive. He was just a man who knew what he wanted and dared to choose it. The next day, Emily was watering petunias by the porch when Nathan arrived. He wasn't in a suit. He carried nothing, just a man looking at her as if he truly saw her for the first time. "I stepped away from the company," he said quietly. Emily paused. "Because of me?" "No, because I needed something real, and I knew if I didn't start by being honest with myself, I'd never deserve to stand in front of you." A moment of stillness, then she stepped closer, slowly. "This time, don't disappear." Nathan smiled. "I'm staying, Not for the past, but for whatever future you might still save a place for me in." She didn't speak. She just nodded, and for the first time, her eyes were unguarded. That night, after Nathan left, Emily sat quietly on her porch, watching the lights inside her flower shop still glowing. She knew that love, this time, wasn't about promises. It was about choices. Real ones, sometimes even mistakes made out of genuine care. But if she didn't speak for herself, if she let others keep seeing her as someone who needed saving, then every struggle she endured, every lonely year she survived, would mean nothing. She was done hiding. There's no debt more shameful than the one you owe to your own truth. And tomorrow she would speak it, out loud, to the whole town. At the town's annual fall fair, Emily stood on a small stage. Around her were booths of flowers, baked goods, old books, and townspeople. Familiar, kind, people who had walked past her flower shop 100 times. Nathan stood in the crowd. Emily wore a simple cream-colored dress and held the microphone with slightly trembling hands, but her eyes were steady, clear. "Maybe you've heard the rumors," she began, "that I co-signed a loan for my husband, that someone stepped in to clear the debt for me." She paused, looked down at Nathan, not with anger, but with quiet acknowledgement. "It's true. I made a mistake. I loved. I trusted. And I paid the price." Silence. "But I also stood up. I kept my shop. I raised my daughter. I didn't need to be saved. I just needed to be respected as someone who didn't give up." Applause broke out, soft at first, then swelling. Nathan smiled, not out of pride, but because he understood now. She didn't need him to be strong. That's exactly why he loved her. That same day, Richard Calloway, Nathan's father, walked into the company's executive floor, where Eleanor and Vivian were scrambling to secure voting control. He dropped a folder on the table. "I can't stay silent anymore," he said. Eleanor froze. Vivian snatched the papers and flipped through them, her face growing pale. "You manipulated the financial reports to inflate Calloway's value before the merger," Richard said. "I have proof. It's all ready with the SEC." Eleanor stood sharply. "You did this for Nathan?" "No," Richard said. "I did this for the truth, just like our son did. You both spent years choosing what was convenient. He finally chose what was right." Vivian said nothing. Eleanor's lips trembled. Meanwhile, at a quiet roadside bar, Joey Malden was halfway through his third whiskey when his phone rang. "I suggest you drop the Emily Jenkins case," the lawyer said. "Someone sent your financial violations to the district attorney." Joey's grip tightened. "Calloway?" "No, Emily, and the man beside her." Joey slammed his glass down, stood up, and left, not with a threat, not with noise, but quiet, defeated. However, no one saw Joey Malden around town after that day. There were only whispers. He sold his old bar for cheap, cleared out overnight, and vanished without saying goodbye. Some said he moved out of state. Others claimed he was taken care of. But the truth was simpler. He knew it was time to disappear before things spiraled beyond repair. The file sent to the district attorney contained solid evidence of predatory lending, inflated interest, and falsified documents tied to Thomas, Emily's late husband. The records included forged signatures, audio threats, and illegal loan structures. Joey had always thought of Emily as a fragile florist. He never expected that behind that gentle face was a woman who knew how to fight, not with fists, but with precision. This time, she didn't need someone to punch for her. She had someone who made the law speak on her behalf. At Calloway Group, after Richard submitted full documentation of the financial manipulation, the board swiftly moved to suspend Eleanor's executive powers and terminate all ongoing talks with Sharpstone. Vivian's position collapsed fast. No leverage, no merger, no insiders left to back her. Eleanor, for the first time in decades, left the boardroom without protest, without speeches, without threats. Her eyes were empty. She hadn't lost because she lacked power. She lost because the son she'd raised by rules had finally chosen to follow something far stronger: his own heart. Nathan didn't feel victorious. He just felt free. He didn't need revenge. He didn't need to prove anything. All he wanted was to live honestly and to watch Emily walk through her town with her head held high. That was the only win he ever cared about. Things slowly quieted after the storm. There were no standing ovations, no dramatic endings like in the movies. Just new days, starting with cleaning up, accepting, and learning to trust again. For Emily, it was the first time in years her heart felt light. No more hiding, no more fear of judgment. And for Nathan, the real victory wasn't walking away from a corporation. It was finally being able to stay beside the woman he once lost. And so they began again, not with promises, but with hands that were finally working together. Every morning, as sunlight touched the petunias in front of Rivera's flowers, the townspeople saw a familiar yet new sight. Nathan Calloway, in a rough fabric apron, wiping counters, sorting fresh flowers, sometimes struggling with the wrapping paper cutter, but never without a smile. Emily stood nearby, not just watching, but guiding. She taught him how to place each stem at just the right angle, like teaching a heart how to love again. "Don't squeeze the stems too hard," she said. "They need to be held, not controlled." Nathan nodded, storing the words, not just for the flowers, but for her. Lena, Emily's daughter, was cautious at first. She remembered the silent tears her mother once shed and didn't trust easily a man who had once disappeared without goodbye. But over time, she saw Nathan patiently clean flower buckets, fold tissue paper, and even teach her Excel spreadsheets on quiet afternoons. She saw that he wasn't trying to be a stepdad, just a steady, listening presence. One evening, as Emily was locking up the shop, Lena walked into the kitchen and said quietly, "I don't think he's going anywhere this time." Emily paused at the sink, turned, and smiled. Not because of the words, but because she knew. Forgiveness doesn't always need to be spoken. It only needs to be lived. Rivera's Flowers, once a quiet corner shop, slowly became a warm gathering place, not just for bouquets, but for stories, laughter, and the sense of belonging. Nathan redesigned the shop's sign and added a small line underneath. "Every flower, a new beginning." He hosted free flower workshops for kids on weekends, while Lena helped run the store's new social media page. And Emily always remained the heart of it all, calm, strong, quietly anchoring everything. One late afternoon, the three of them stood outside the shop, Emily, Nathan, and Lena, watching townsfolk laugh, chatting with fresh bouquets in hand, golden light bathing the new Rivera's Flowers sign. "Feels like a real family," Lena murmured, soft but loud enough for them to hear. Nathan looked at Emily. She didn't reply. She just quietly reached for his hand. No promises, no definitions, just a pair of hands, this time held tightly. When Emily reached for his hand that evening, with the soft sunset behind them and the quiet laughter of customers fading in the background, Nathan didn't say a word. But inside, something quietly closed, and something else finally opened. It wasn't the cinematic ending he once imagined. There was no rain-drenched kiss, no swelling music, no tearful airport hug. Just a hand, warm, real, and enough to make him understand. Everything he had waited for was meant for this moment. He thought back to those first mornings at the flower shop, when Emily wouldn't meet his eyes for longer than 5 seconds. He remembered Lena's guarded glances, the spilled watering cans, the tangled ribbons, the way he fumbled through bouquets of carnations. And now, all of it felt like pieces of a journey, not toward forgiveness, but toward earning the kind of trust that grows slowly, quietly, and surely. 1 year later, spring returned to the small town. The petunias blooming outside Rivera's Flowers were fuller than ever. Not because of better seeds or special care, but because the atmosphere had changed, warmer, gentler, as if each petal was smiling at the morning sun. And today, everyone in town knew there would be a wedding. No grand venue, no designer gown, no orchestras. Just a floral arch of lavender and dahlias, the two flowers that once witnessed both goodbye and return. A small table draped in white lace, a few jars of fresh flowers, and folding chairs. But most of all, people who truly cared about Emily and Nathan already gathered, early and eager. Emily wore a simple white dress, uncomplicated, graceful, like herself. Lena stood beside her as a junior bridesmaid, holding a bouquet Nathan had arranged himself. She beamed, not with the hesitation she once had, but with a bright, quiet trust that seemed to say, "My mom chose right." Nathan, in a soft brown vest and crisp white shirt, waited under the floral arch. He looked as slightly clumsy as the first time he walked into the flower shop, but there was no hesitation in his eyes now. When he saw Emily walking toward him, everything else faded away. No speeches, just eyes meeting, a quiet smile, a hand reaching out and being held. And in that simple touch, all the years between them faded, not forgotten, but forgiven. When the ceremony ended, guests stood and applauded. They raised glasses of champagne and chamomile tea. No one mentioned status, wealth, or success, because here everyone understood. True happiness is living honestly with the heart. Suddenly, amid the chatter and clinking glasses, Eleanor Calloway appeared. She wore a muted gray coat, her hair neatly pinned, her gaze softer than it had ever been. Both Emily and Nathan stilled at the sight of her. But Eleanor approached, no grandeur, no tension, just the quiet posture of a mother stepping toward the son she once lost. She stopped in front of Emily. "Thank you for not turning your back on him, even when I did. I was wrong about you and about what love should look like," she said, her voice trembling. Emily didn't answer right away. She simply nodded and held Nathan's hand tighter. Eleanor turned to Lena, offering a rare smile. "I'd like to give you something," she said, handing the girl an envelope. "It's a personal education fund I set up, if you choose to study anything in the future." Lena's eyes widened. Emily rested a hand on her shoulder, nodding. "Thank you," the girl whispered. And for the first time, Nathan saw his mother, not the proud matriarch, not the Iron Lady, but a woman blinking away tears, stepping back into the crowd like any other guest. As dusk settled, string lights twinkled along the flower shop's awning. Music played from a small speaker in the corner. People danced, laughed, shared apple pie, and sipped warm tea. Emily and Nathan didn't need a faraway honeymoon. They had everything, right where it once began, where it once ended, and now where something entirely new was growing. Later that night, after most guests had gone, Nathan was cleaning up glasses while Emily stood quietly at the flower counter, the very spot she once watched him walk away 28 years ago. He walked over, wrapped his arms around her from behind. "I used to think, if I could go back to when we were 17, I'd never leave." Emily chuckled softly, leaning into his chest. "But if you hadn't left, we wouldn't know what love really means, when it's no longer innocent." Silence followed, just the scent of lavender, the gentle blink of lights and hearts beating in unison. Nathan took her hand, not to hold her back, but to walk forward. A new chapter began, not perfect, not easy, but one written by two people who had weathered the storm and still chose to stay. And just like the flowers they tended, love too had bloomed, quietly, steadily, from roots that never gave up.